I'm trying to play the intro. Okay, guys. I normally have 60 seconds to get myself ready, but for some reason, the intro's not playing. But let's just give a few seconds to get people to join in. So, Anthony Keeley, hi there, hello. That's very frustrating. I wanted to play my intro, but it's not going to play. No, never mind. Right. Today, Rightmove published its August house price index, or its asking price index. And there are a few things notable about it. It didn't get as much price coverage. It didn't get as much coverage, press coverage even. I can't even get my banners on screen. What's going on with my restream this evening? It's supposed to be playing a banner down there. Sorry, guys. I'm having streaming platform issues. Never mind. Let's keep going. So, Rightmove put out its August 2025 house price index today. And I thought it would be handy to run through it because there's a lot going on. There it is. Great. There's a lot going on. And it's quite bewildering and quite confusing, especially when only a week ago we had Halifax going record house prices. And to the uninitiated, the phrase record house prices would appear to suggest everything's fine. House prices keep climbing. And it's extremely unhelpful, very confusing. And I'm having an increasing number of both sellers and agents, including agents I don't even know, contacting me going, oh, yeah, I'd love to know what you think. It's getting really tough out there. It's getting a bit tougher. So this was the Times. And I've put the Times up here because I wanted to show how even the breakdown of Rightmove's index in this press article is still, unintentionally perhaps, not as helpful and as informative as you might want it or hope it to be. Let me explain why, and then we'll go into the Rightmove index itself. And I've also got the Rightmove house price index publication from this time last year to compare it with. I think that's quite a helpful comparison so you can see the change. So, house prices fall for first time since January last year. That in itself is a very unhelpful, if not misleading, headline. And bearing in mind that over 100 times more people read headlines than read articles, this is itself not a helpful headline. House prices fall. That is a blanket statement that implies that all house prices have come down at the transaction level. And whilst that might be true, that is not an accurate interpretation of Rightmove's publication. Since January last year is also not helpful if you don't understand the context, although to give them credit, they do immediately in the subheading here actually elaborate on what they mean. Rightmove data reveals a 0.1% annual fall in average asking prices. And that is a helpful statement to follow up with because it does actually clarify what they mean. So they're talking about only this arbitrary measure of what are house prices, asking prices this year compared with asking prices last year. What is the change in that 12-month period? Okay. In itself, the change in a 12-month period is not necessarily meaningful or unmeaningful. It is just an arbitrary change. To say that house prices fall on the back of compared with this time last year, again, unhelpful, bold headline, but yes, tick in the box for the subheading where it reveals a 0.1% in the average asking price compared to this time last year, with more stock on offer in the South. Now, again, I want to the annual rate of house price inflation has turned negative for the first time in more than 18 months. That is a demonstrably false statement if it's based on Rightmove's press release. Okay, it suggests that this is the first time that average house prices have gone negative in over 18 months, and it's just not true. What they're doing is saying it's January 2024 was the last time that Rightmove recorded a negative change in its 12-month readout. The average asking prices of its property. I mean, look at that. That is £100,000 more than the ONS's average house price figure, and shows you right there straight away what the problem is, because this is asking prices, not sold prices. Okay. And the average figure is 1.1% lower than this point last year. But again, it's not breaking it down either regionally or by property type. And Rightmove's index does break it down by property type slightly for us, which we'll get into in a moment. Economists reduced their house price forecasts over the summer as a glut of homes on the market forced sellers to price more competitively. And that is also an interesting thing to just point out here, because as my friend Emma Files put on X today, Knight Frank has revised down its house price predictions, now claiming UK mainstream prices will rise by 1% in 2025. So they're now joining Savills and Rightmove and Zoopla, all of whom revised their forecasts down for the UK overall house prices to only climb 1% in the course of 2025. Okay, now let's get into the actual index itself. So here is. Have I stopped the sharing? Sorry, I've stopped the sharing. Here is today's publication from Rightmove. Okay, Monday the 15th of September. The largest monthly sample. That's not true anymore, because Best Agent has a larger monthly sample than Rightmove does. Of property prices and housing market activity. Now, this is the bit they're referring to as the house prices falling. As average asking prices dipped below this time last year. Okay, that's if you average all property types, so first-time buyer, second stepper, and top of the ladder prices, although each of those three things is doing something different. And if you average out the whole country. So it's not helpful for anyone in any individual area. Monthly asking prices are 0.4% up on last month, which is typical in a seasonally in September. That's typical. Now, it's worth pointing out that in August, just a month ago, the average prices fell, and it was very unusual for that to happen, because normally they do fall in August, but not if July and June fell as well. So June, July, and August were all negative. Now, that's unusual, and Rightmove a month ago said biggest house price falls in the summer for a long time, or since records began in July. Biggest July fall, that's right, since records began. So you might expect a larger than average bump back up in September. So I thought it'd be interesting to compare that figure with September last year. And in September last year, the monthly increase on August was 0.8%. So it is a weaker seasonal bounce this year compared to last year. All right, so let's go back to 2025. Now, what I want to do is go down to what is actually the most useful part on here in terms of making comparisons. And by the way, guys, I know, oh God, I can hear them already. I can hear the Muppets already going, but Charlie, you always say that Rightmove, can't trust Rightmove's index. No, that's not what I say. That's not what I say. What I always say is that Rightmove's index is misleading because it's only made up of asking prices from the last 28 days. No transaction prices. It's only a small part of the market. It excludes price reductions, and it ignores the whole rest of the market. And for that reason, to only quote an index of newly listed asking prices is unhelpful and misleading. That's what I say. That doesn't mean that there aren't useful conclusions to be drawn by analyzing the moving monthly asking price average. Okay? Now, the headline said that house prices have fallen, asking prices have fallen year on year 0.1%. And that's that point there. That's the number there. And 370,000 £257 is the average asking price. And if we compare it with this time last year, we can see that actually, where are we? There it is, £370 and £700 this time last year. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's 500 quid lower than this time last year. Okay, and I've linked to both of these publications below in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. I'll make this bigger. Let's make it as big as we can so you can really see it. Okay. So the other thing to look at here is the monthly year-on-year, the annual change broken up by the three different kinds of market sectors. So they've got first-time buyers, second steppers, and top of the ladder. And what we can see here, if you look at the monthly and the annual, it's quite interesting. The first-time buyer, the annual price is 0.2% down, not 0.1%. Second steppers are up year-on-year, 0.6% in the price. And top of the ladder, down 0.2%. So that's interesting that the top of the market by value and the bottom of the market by value are both down on the asking prices of this time last year. But the asking prices of the second steppers, who are in the middle, is up. So that is an indication of that's something quite interesting. And it reflects what I think is happening, which is that there is more demand for the middle homes because of downsizing and upsizing, right? So it is this market, this falling house prices, difficult buyers market is a good market for upsizers, right? And so the upsize going from first time buyer to second step, they are creating demand for that second step. But we've also seen a lot of downsizing happening, and the downsizers are also buying those middle of the market properties, the second steppers. And I think that's why we're seeing an improvement. So prices in the middle sector being more resilient than the first time buyer and the top of the ladder sector. And again, to compare that trend seems to be happening for 2 years, because this time last year, the second stepper sector was going up. The annual increase was higher than both first-time buyers and top of the ladder. Okay. Now, the monthly changes here, first-time buyers, monthly change 0.4%, second steppers, monthly change 0.3%. And by the way, this calls into question their overall monthly sector. How can that be? It must be because of the mix of first-time buyer properties, I suppose. So first-time buyer properties up 0.4% on the month, asking prices. Second steppers up 0.3%, but top of the ladder down 0.5% on August. Okay. Now, you might look at this. Let's just go back up to the headline figures here. Oh, and by the way, that's the other one thing I wanted to compare. So number of sales agreed up by 4% compared to last year. Okay. How does that compare with last year? Well, let's have a look. Last year, the increase in sales on the year before was 27% up on 2023. All right, so August 2024 was 27% up on August 2023. But August this year is only 4% up on August last year. Now, it's hard to make head or tail of what's going on here, because there are regional variations, there are property type variations, there are seasonal variations. So what do I think we can deduce from this? Well, I think because Rightmove, the Rightmove index only includes asking prices the last 28 months, what it's telling us is that's what's happening to prices of newly listed homes now. Now, those homes aren't going to sell, and they aren't going to hit even the ones that do sell that were listed in the last 28 days are unlikely to be published by the land registry for over a year from now. So the ONS figures that we get, if they were reliable, which they're not, sadly, because they're revised so much, the ONS figures we're getting. So there's basically somewhere between an 18-month and 2-year total time lag between Rightmove's asking price index and when we finally get the accurate ONS land registry price average, which is a year after they first record them, because they only include about 8% of transactions with their first publication, and they take another full year until they've recorded over 90% of transactions. This price obfuscation, this price opacity, this lack of transparency with house prices is what allows the industry and lenders and brokers to tell you the prices are going up and they're record prices and everything's great, because you've got no way of disproving it, because we don't get timely publication of actual sale prices. What's frustrating about that the most of all is that the HMRC actually has the most recent completion prices from 2 weeks ago, because all residential property transactions are required to be reported to HMRC and the stamp duty paid within 14 days of completion. And when HMRC publishes its monthly transaction volumes, which are exactly accurate, it chooses to withhold the price data. And it cites utter cobbler's reasons of privacy. It doesn't need to publish the addresses. It doesn't need to publish the addresses. It doesn't need to divulge anyone's privacy. It doesn't need to publish anybody's names. It could easily publish exchange and completion prices from last month, and that would give us total transparency on house prices. But they choose not to. Why is that? Well, I would speculate. My speculative answer to that question is because the house building industry is the largest donor to the political parties. The largest, it's even bigger than banking. Let that sink in, right? The house building sector donates more money to political parties than the banking sector does. And I don't think those donors would be very happy if actual prices were published in a timely manner, because it would then undermine the ability of house builders to sell house prices at tip-top retail prices to the uninitiated and gullible buyers who come and go, oh, that's the price, is it? And there's no negotiation? No, all right, we'll just pay top price then. Without that price, without the lack of price transparency, it would be much, much harder for the home builders to charge such high prices on their homes. And it would be easier for the public to negotiate them down. All right. So this is, what does this tell us? This tells us it's a weak and weakening market. Okay. The monthly price increase in average asking prices is much lower than normal for the time of year. Yearly prices have turned negative, and the number of sales agreed is weak compared to the demand that there should be. And this is for August, and this was before they announced all of the potential tax measures coming to the budget. So it'll be interesting to see what next month's readout is. Okay, do we have any questions? Yachek D showing off, saying hello from sunny Mallorca. Optimus J, hi. Andrew Dennis, Stephen Simmons, Raymando Senior. Oh God, yes, we got lots of politics going on that might affect things. If house prices fall, we are all going under, says Alex Jenkinson. I think that's irony, isn't it? Oh, Neil Ralph says, I'm a new agent, open today. Congratulations, and that's extremely brave of you in this market. Best of luck. Best of luck. Master of Whisperers makes an interesting observation about Knight Frank. Knight Frank are a pile of, I shall let you read what it says on screen. Rhymes with Frank. I'm going to China, says Andrew Dennis. All right, says Paul. David Holloway. Let's get to some questions. Ramble and Root says, my previous house sale didn't appear on the land registry for 18 months. Billy Big Cool says, my Rightmove search area picked up 11 properties in the last 24 hours. 3 newly added and 8 reduced. Yeah. So guys, the thing to understand about the housing market is that no matter how bad things get, there are always people who need to move because of births, marriages, deaths, debt, and divorce. Birth, marriage, death, debt, divorce, right? Even when, like, you look at the worst areas of transaction collapse and house price collapse and crashes, there are still tens of thousands of people moving house, right? And so what we're really talking about is how difficult or easy it is to move. And right now, it's difficult to sell because a lot of buyers are now sitting on their hands waiting for the budget announcements to come out. And for those of them who can afford to wait, it's understandable, isn't it? But I don't think there's a lot worth waiting for, especially for a first-time buyer, because you're not going to be affected so much by stamp duty. I think the top end of the market is going to get affected more than the bottom end of the market. But honestly, it's very difficult to predict what they're going to do exactly. And until we know all of the exact details that they're going to publish, we don't know what the effect on the housing market is going to be. But I get a lot of agents telling me that it has gone very, very quiet. In fact, I just wanted to look up that survey I did with the agents in the Best Agent group. So I put a survey out asking agents how much the budget property taxes had on the effect on their business. And over 90% said noticeably quieter, not too bad. So that tells you that the not too bad thing means that people are still moving, right? But noticeably quieter is that effect, that instant effect of, the number of buyer inquiries. Now, I get a lot of you guys coming to my website to look for conveyancers and mortgage brokers and buyer search packs. And there's been a definitely noticeable drop off in the number of you looking to talk to mortgage brokers. Again, that to me is a sign of a lot of buyers going, we're really worried about what's going to happen. And some of those agents said that it's had a real impact and current pipeline is affected. But that's all I wanted to say, really, just a short one this evening. Any other questions? Maeve, I can't pronounce that name, Maeve. Hi, Charlie, been following you for years. I live in Llandudno, North Wales, a weird market here, very overpriced since COVID. Everything is being reduced, but not by enough. Let's see what happens. Thank you, Maeve, watching on Facebook. Where are all the X followers? Anyone watching on X? Got lots of YouTube commenters. And there are normally more of you following on X than there are here. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to cover that. Wrapping it up, I think that this, when you combine it with the RICS report that came out last week, I did a full in-depth video on that last week. You combine it with the forthcoming budget that's still, nearly 3 months away, still 2.5 months away. You combine it with the weakening economy. There are no sources of optimism for either house price growth or transaction increases in the next 3-4. I mean, I think because the budget is so late, so close to December, and the December market is also very, very quiet traditionally, people are going to the people who are in a position to wait are going to be waiting until the new year to see what happens. Everyone else who needs to keep moving will still keep moving. But those of you who have the luxury of discretion are clearly taking your time over this. If you are a seller in this market, and selling is a must, you should not delay. right? If you're upsizing, not so much pressure. But if you're just selling, maybe it's a probate sale, but if you're selling without a chain, you're selling and not buying, or if you're downsizing, I would not delay. I would move. I would bring your asking price down to the market to get people to the door. Even in this market, well-priced homes sell quickly. You may not like the price at which your home will sell quickly, but if you price it well and create competing interest, you will still get competing buyers on your property. And competing buyers means you have found the current market. Some of you might be thinking, oh, well, what happens if we wait for the budget? And will the buyers come back after the budget? Not all the buyers have gone away. There are buyers who want to buy now who don't want to wait. And that is always waiting. Honestly, in the property market, when you're moving for non-financial reasons, it never pays to wait. It might occasionally pay financially, but it's about the move, not the money. It's about moving on with your life. It's about not being in limbo. So if you're a seller, I just would make sure you price properly. All right. And if you're a buyer, I can tell you something, right? As a buyer, the coming months are going to be absolutely golden for you up to Christmas, because there will be so much property sitting in the market not selling. And amongst those sellers, there'll be some who are so desperate to get sold and just move on with their life that's when bargains happen. So if I was a buyer right now with the luxury of time, but I wanted to buy and have a home to move into, I would be making sure that I had everything ready, like really ready. And I would be out viewing while agents are quieter than normal for this time of year. And I would be looking for properties that were asking price outside my price range, but have been on the market a very long time. And I would be making genuine offers. They might be low, but if you're the only offer, you're the only offer. And sometimes 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 of those sellers will say yes. And you only need one home. And I get people all the time messaging me saying that they took this advice about looking at properties that were outside their budget in terms of asking price, but have been on the market a long time. And they've got it. I had someone actually send me a lengthy story of exactly that I'd never heard from before. It's the first time he messaged me and said, we are now in a dream home we never imagined having because we followed your advice of looking at stuff outside our price range that had no one else offering in and putting our offers in. And what I'm trying to tell you is that the conditions for that in the next few months are going to be absolutely right. The conditions for plucking bargains are absolutely right. Now, a lot of buyers are going to go, oh, well, I'm going to wait. And what happens is all the buyers who wait, by the time they decide to look again, all the buyers are looking again and they've missed the opportunity to bag a bargain. So if you want a home, it doesn't make any sense to wait. I'm not saying buy one now. I'm just saying be out looking, because if you find the perfect place and no one else is offering and you put your offer in, your chances of it getting accepted, provided your offer shows that you're ready to proceed immediately, are better than at other times. Never stop viewing if you want a home, right? Waiting because of uncertainty, it doesn't make any sense. No one knows what's going to happen. But what we do know is the market's going quieter now, ripe to pickings. Honestly, this is when the bargain hunters, the really savvy bargain hunters, are going to snap up the bargains, okay? If you wait for prices to fall and then swoop in, never happens. Everyone's swooping in at the same time and the prices go back up. I think it is noticeable that even at the first time buyer level, prices are down. It's not that the demand isn't there, right? That there are people don't stop. People who want to own a home don't stop wanting to own a home. They just reduce how much they're willing to pay for it. That's what's happening. Anyway, guys, have a good one. If you are new here, if you're a buyer or a seller and you're new here, in the description below is my Linktree link, and there you will find my 2 videos, 10 golden rules for home sellers and Charlie's 10 golden rules for home buyers. Start with those videos if you're new here. Okay. Otherwise, have a good one. Join the email newsletter mailing list if you haven't already. There may not be a 5 Fact Friday video this week. There may not be a 5 Fact Friday. There will be a newsletter. There might not be a video this week because I may not be able to do a video this Friday. But there will be 5 Fact Friday by newsletter. So make sure you've joined the newsletter mailing list at that URL there, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter. Any last minute questions? Charlotte Newton. Charlotte, you're a prime candidate for what I'm talking about. Charlotte Newton on X says, currently renting, want to buy ASAP, but housing market is so quiet, feels desperate. If you're a buyer and you're in a position to buy ASAP and the housing market's quiet, perfect. These are the circumstances for you. Go out buying when no one else is. That's when you get the bargains. Charlotte, you're a new name that I don't recognize. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you watch my video, 10 Golden Rules. Just search for it on YouTube, right? Charlie's 10 Golden Rules for Home Buyers. There it is. And here's the link. I'll put in the live chat for you right here. There it is. It started playing straight away. I'll put it in the live chat. Okay, there is that. So, Charlotte, if you haven't watched that, please watch that. It's in the live chat there. Yeah, Alex Jenkins says, if I have money now is when I'd be looking for a house when everyone else is running away. Yep, absolutely right. Lydia Tobb says, the estate agent is not making it easy for buyers asking to negotiate the asking price. They wouldn't be doing their job if they made it easy for you to negotiate. And that is why I always say, disregard what the agents are saying to you. Make your offer. If you've looked at a property that you like, don't ask them how much you need to pay. Never ask an agent, how much do I need to offer? You will never get an honest answer. Almost never. Just work out your own maximum comfortable price. Make your offer by email. By the way, I have another more recent golden rules, and it's my 5 golden rules of offering. And I think, Lydia, you need to see this. Yeah, here we are. Copy link address. I'll put it in the live chat for you right here. Here are my 5 golden rules of offering, and that will explain to you how to get around those agents that don't let you negotiate. John Snow says, get them ducks in a row and offer. Absolutely. And in fact, I have a website. I have a web page that can help with that. So to make sure you've got everything you need lined up, go to this URL on the page now, mhwc.co.uk/all my ducks with hyphens, all hyphen my hyphen ducks. Glenn Watson says, when is the Stig coming on the show? I know, I'm so boring, aren't I? It's much more fun when he's here. Well, Stiggy, I actually heard from him today because I did text him and go, you've gone very quiet. He's up to his eyes. He's up to his eyes. So I'll get him back on as soon as I can. Love having him back and having him on the show. And whenever I can get hold of him, I'll get hold of him. But he does it for love, right? He doesn't get any money from me for this. So giving his time to this show is we must make sure we buy him beers next time. Now, Paul says winter 2027 is the time to buy. You see, the problem with that statement, Paul, is it assumes that you're not going to be living anywhere until then. Now, if you want to buy now, this is an unhelpful statement. But I want to buy it. So like Charlotte earlier going, I'm desperate to buy ASAP. Waiting till 2027, it's not necessarily the time to buy because you've still got to pay for someone to live between now and then. So even if, as you are implying, that's when prices might be at the bottom, wages might also be falling by then. There are lots of other things that could be happening. So If you were an investor and you were purely buying for investment purposes only, then you might be right. But as a home buyer, there's never any point in waiting. Don't overpay, get a bargain, but don't wait to buy. You'll never catch the bottom of the market. Amber Hadley says, been renting for 12 months, desperately looking for a house that's not overpriced. Estate agents, get real on your prices, please. It's not the estate agents, it's the sellers. It's the sellers. Agents, honestly, every day I see messages between agents go, how do we get the sellers to drop their prices? How do we get the sellers to drop their prices? Well, answer number one is don't overvalue in the first place. But unfortunately, a lot of agents don't get the house on their books at all if they don't agree to the seller's unreasonable price demands to begin with. But again, Amber, just make the offer. I'd still see these comments like, you're desperately looking for a house. Why aren't you offering? If you're desperate for a house, you should be ignoring asking prices, viewing and offering on the ones that you want. FOAMO on X says, we had an offer of 275,000 on a bungalow that was first listed at 2023 for 350,000. Do you mean offer accepted? If so, well, fantastic. That's excellent news. Good question. Chris says, how essential is it to have your house on the market before making an offer? We want a very specific type of property, so don't want to be rushed into a purchase before we get an offer. Okay. The agents I'm working with in Kingston, Carringtons, who by following the best agent process to the letter, are selling every single house they list in under 3 weeks with multiple competing bids on every single one. Because they're getting so many buyers wanting to buy every single house they list, if a buyer comes on and says, I want to look at this house you've got in the market, and their house is not yet on the market, then they are told, look, I'm really sorry, there's no point in you viewing because this house is going to sell within 2 or 3 weeks and you won't have your offer. You're not going to be in a proceedable position in that period of time. So if you are buying a house from an agent that's selling sensibly and getting multiple offers within a few weeks, then the answer is yes, it is essential not only to have your house on the market, but to have it under offer. Because if you don't have your house under offer, when you make an offer on something that you like, your offer will rank lower than other buyers who are either cash or have got their house under offer already. Now, having said that, there are other agents, if you're looking for a very specific type of property, if that property's been on the market a long time, it might not be as crucial for you to be under offer, if that makes sense. Hope that helps. Foamo says, yeah, offer accepted. So you got 270,000 offer accepted on a bungalow that was listed for 350,000. Well done. Good work. Glenn Watson says, I'd rather buy a good house at a fair price than a fair house at a good price. Get viewing, people. Quite right, Glenn. Quite right. Michelle says there's nothing new coming to the market. There are old houses stagnating on the market, but not enough fresh stock that is desirable. Michelle, have you been and viewed the old houses that are stagnating on the market that are outside your budget, but that you'd like to live in anyway? If not, go and view them. Make your offer. You never know. Don't wait. 5 Yard Cottages, I think that's right. Yes, that's the name here. On YouTube says, I want to buy a new build as a first-time buyer. Have listened to your 10 tips for buying. Thank you. But how do I ensure I don't overpay on a new build specifically? It's no different. It's no different. You work out what that new build is worth to you in your circumstances, and you make your maximum comfortable offer. That's it. You need to factor in that new builds have a premium that comes off as soon as you buy them. Factor that into your equation, but without knowing how long you're buying for, your reasons for buying. Are you in a couple? Are you have family? Whatever. I don't know. It's the same thing. You need to work out your maximum comfortable price for that property and make your offer. It's no different for a new build than it is for for a second-hand house. You just need to factor in that new builds are always overpriced compared to second-hand ones. Richard Mosley on LinkedIn says the Rightmove reports are utterly irrelevant. Yep, I agree. And the reason that I do these analyses of them is to try and put them into context rather than people believing the headlines. Roger Ball says, there's nothing new on the market where I'm looking. I feel sellers are holding back in some forlorn hope the market's coming back. It isn't, and it won't be for years. Very frustrating for cash buyers. Agreed, Roger. But have you looked at everything that is on the market, including stuff that's outside your budget? Because especially as a cash buyer, you are more likely to snaffle a bargain. Gosh, this is a recurring theme. Cyberface on X says, in Muswell Hill in North London, hardly any houses are coming onto the market this year. Might this be stagnation, people not wanting to list, or houses selling before they come to the market? It's unlikely to be houses selling before they come to the market. In fact, in North London, I know that house prices are falling, flat prices are increasing in the North London postcodes. There might be some selling off market. It's not likely to be that in this market, but it's also possible. I mean, intelligent sellers and really good agents will sell stuff off market. But yet again, what it feels like is that the market's stagnating and there's a glut of unsold property and it's been there a long time. (1881) Properties Limited says it's like September 2022 all over again. We're all doomed. Doomed, I tell you. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm late for the cinema. Going to go and see taking her indoors, and we're going to go and see Downton Abbey, just for good little bit of nostalgia. Have a great one. See you on the next video, and don't forget to sign up for the 5 Friday newsletter, as there won't be a video this week. See you guys. Bye-bye.